Human+AI. Here we are again for another episode. We're going to be going over GPT 5.5 is not just an incremental change, or at least to itself. It seems to be the biggest jump in the dev workflow signal that we've seen this year. So Annika, you're going to take us through this next page.
Okay, what the internet's actually saying about OpenAI's new release.
Yeah, perfect. Super easy. So it's noticeably better at finding real bugs. That's comments produced, 75% of the comments produced over the baseline of 67. So it's a 12% increase. It's slightly chattier, but that volume is actually buying us a lot more findings. So you want to read that one?
79.2% increase is expected issues found. Okay, so that's actually a almost 60% increase from baseline.
It'd be 20 points. 60% increase from baseline. So on the curated review benchmark, ChatGPT 5.5 surfaces dramatically more of the bugs reviewers actually wanted caught. So we had seen some of this in videos that had been published the last few days of people that are doing more coding with it. We're just reading from CodeRabbit's curated kind of review set. We haven't had the chance, nor I think am I technically smart enough to be able to tell which bug it could or couldn't find. But CodeRabbit is usually pretty good. And that's a 40% increase from 27.9%. When it speaks up, it's actually right more often and less noise, fewer, oh, actually that's fine replies on pull requests. So the curated review benchmark, expected issues again at 58% baseline, up 20 points to the 79.2%. Precision, this is real bugs and total comments. This is important because it ends up costing less, which we'll get into a little bit later. So if it's able to find more bugs and make less comments, it basically costs less. And then again, the comments per pull request in real world volume. So 36% more real bugs caught with only 12% more comments. So the single per comment goes up, and this is not just throughput. Simple answer, way fewer tokens. The plan, generally on the verbose baseline, was 1,300 tokens, but with GPT 5.5, it's around 640. So again, compared to Claude or some of the other ones that are out there right now doing pull requests, looking at repos, you are actually getting a significantly cheaper cost for your token. The actions itself, around half as many tokens, and the inspection lines around half as many tokens. So 2.4 times more retries and the same budget. And this is important for us because for agent harnesses, they have a plan, they act, they inspect, and then they retry loops. So with Hermes, one of the agents we have up at RapidClaw, the ability to have this recursive self-learning is way more valuable, because over time it gets cheaper anyways. Once it learns a skill, it repeats that skill, it can overcome the problems it was having. You end up actually saving a lot within the harness, which is really important. Everyone's been thinking about what can the LLM do, but it's also important to understand how this affects the agentic harness, which I think is the biggest one. So you want to read the positive ones here?
What they're actually saying.
Yeah.
Quicker, leaner, and more direct. Shorter responses, more selective review behavior, and a strong bias towards small workable changes instead of broad rewrites.
Yeah, so this is the quote from the top of the CodeRabbit article that we built this from. I've got Koparthi down here as well. This one.
It rejects weak diagnosis now. That's the part nobody benchmarks, but you feel it on PR1.
Yeah, this is important too, because when you're building, like, even though we don't build super complex stuff here, you can tell the difference when it's able to work and function. I mean, for like 2 weeks prior, Claude sucked and everybody was screaming at Anthropic to pay attention, and they're like, no, it's fine, your guys' prompting just isn't as good. So here, read this Ethan Mollick one as well.
Best a scope task with explicit constraints. Stop asking it to invent your architect.
Yeah, this is a big change too, both between Claude and ChatGPT. You have to be more specific with what you want it to do, because it will do the bad things that you didn't want it to do previously. Before, if you asked it to do something vague, it would come up with its own plan. They've taken away the temperature and some of the deterministic features, which means if you ask it to do this specific thing, even though it might be dumber than what it would normally do, it would just do that. So it can help, but you can't basically ask it to do everything because it doesn't know what you want. It won't just fill in that context as well as it used to. So it's becoming more and more about how well you can prompt, which is how well you can ask good questions. And so this one here,
Codex feels like it actually shipped this time. Smaller divs, fewer helpful rewrites of unrelated files.
yeah, this was a big problem. The earlier Codex stuff I had used when I was first trying out Claude, and I was like, okay, yeah, Opus is way better. It would just rewrite stuff for no reason, and you'd end up with a lot of fat basically in the code. And one negative review here, modest delta on the vendor's own benchmark, wake me up when it's a held out one. It's doing better than Opus 4.7 for the most part. Smaller amounts of tokens needed, less time. So it's giving Opus 4.7 a run for its money, which is really impressive. And again, it makes a big difference in this agentic harnessing that we do. So this is a weird quirk, something to know about. For some reason, ChatGPT wants to always publish polished interaction work summaries and detailed animations almost entirely in indigo color basis. Maybe it's like choosing its own favorite color. We'd seen this with Claude, is that as you tweak and tune the model, they end up with their own type of voice. And apparently it's following some of this too literally, which we went over before. If your prompt is weak or vague or self-contradictory, 5.5 does not push back anymore. It executes what you wrote fast, and the result mirrors your prompt's weakness. Older models would pause and clarify, it would double check back in, it would make sure that you want to do this, or even plan over top of what you had asked. It's no longer doing that, and neither is Claude 4.7. This is really leaning us into this idea that your ability to know what it is that you want is going to be that much more important. So it was easier a few months ago for people that didn't know a whole lot about code to architect a system because it would do that for them. Here, you need to know more about architecting a system, like, oh, I want provisioned API keys and I need to push the TUI. If you don't give it specific instructions, it's not really as good. You want to try this one too?
Yeah, it's less verbose, but it doesn't mean that it's less smart. Surface level, it can feel like it's doing less, but the thinking out loud is gone. But on debug, access control, and API regression tasks, it isolates the actual failure and proposes a scoped fix faster.
Yeah, so it will follow the dumb things that you want it to do. It won't really tell you about it till it's done, and then it will help you. So there is a kind of a token mashup here where if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to chew up more tokens to try to get you to that end result. So it's not telling you as much along the way to conserve token output. Polish and not original, execution quality jumped, originality didn't. It falls back on familiar styling choices unless you push it to change, which is great as if you say, hey, do this cleanly, or weaker at surprise me, kind of contextual offerings, like, hey, get creative and make something that I wouldn't expect. It's not good at this. It's much better at do this kind of specific thing that I'm asking you for. So the overall verdict is yes for scoped real work. If you give it a bounded task, explicit constraints, and a way to verify against the system, it will out-execute the previous baseline on a real-world signal, code fix scope, and token economy. Mm-hmm. Originality and architecture level tastes, that's still up to the individual. So that's it for ChatGPT 5.5. We made it through another quick episode of Human+AI.
Hey.
Yeah. Give us a thumbs up, like, comment, share, all that fun stuff, and we'll see you guys again on the next breaking news.